is Way Up with Angela Yee, and what a day for you to be here. Today, Joy-Ann Reid is here with me.
It's so good to be here, Angela.
Listen, yesterday I was saying to myself, man, there is so much going on right now, and how appropriate that Joy-Ann Reid is going to be here, because you are the person that was like the go-to person to watch on the news, but now you're the go-to person to watch with your very own show. So congratulations on the Joy Reid Show.
Thank you so much. I'm like so excited about how well it's doing and how many people are vibing with it. It makes me feel good.
Over 1 million people viewed it, like in the first,
1 week.
In the first week. That's huge. That has to feel good, because no matter what, when you start something new that's yours, you always are like a little nervous, like what's going to happen? How will people receive this?
I was totally nervous. I was in a complete 1 week panic attack. I mean, because every day it's a different level of intensity, because I don't have a 15-person staff and a 30-person crew. I don't have all of the resources. It's my husband and I. We have a little production company. Our girl Adrienne, our small group. We're sort of a little band of determined people. It's a half a dozen people as opposed to 50 people, and so it's all on us, and so the pressure is all on it's on us. And so when we launched it, we were betting on ourselves, and it just makes me feel good that so many of my people, my folks, are still here for me.
It's interesting because it also gives you the opportunity to kind of say what you want to say. I remember you talking about your tweets were a big problem, just tweeting how just expressing things, and that was something that you were getting calls about. But now you can do what you want.
I can do what I want.
Sometimes you need that push, though, to get that freedom.
I think so. I think sometimes things that you look at as a negative are just God saying, no, you need to do this in a different way, and you need to be your authentic self. And look, I mean, they really did hate my tweets and my social media. They hated my Instagram. They would literally, I would literally get called in for liking a post, not reposting it, just hitting a like on something. I'm like, you guys are policing me that's seriously
wild.
That you're looking at what I'm liking. And I'm not liking we've got Nazism happening in America. I'm not liking that. I mean, if I knew that somebody was liking a Nazi post or a super racist post, something like that, that would be one thing. But these were just posts about Gaza. These were just posts about things that were happening in the world. These were just posts about Trump or liking a post that was mocking him. We can't mock the president of the United States. I thought this was a free country. Right.
He's posted about you, and he's said,
ma'am.
And I always say it's a compliment if he has some negative things to say about you, because he basically was saying you're not a star, you're not this, you're not that. I remember that too. And I was like, okay, good. Because the last thing you want is for Trump to be like, I really like her.
Right. And also, Donald Trump, I'm saying to myself, I'm like, if you were logical about this, Donald, you wouldn't do it, because what you've done is you've told the whole world and all your 250 million followers that you know who I am. You're not supposed, if I'm untalented, unimportant, why do you know who I am? And why do you know my Twitter handle?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I know that the trolls have been coming, but what I love that you did is you've turned it around and said, look, you can watch my stuff for free, but if you want to leave a comment, you got to pay to subscribe. So the trolls have to pay if they want to leave a comment.
That's correct. And you can feel free to troll at will, but it will cost you $8 a month. Thank you.
Now, tell me about this whole process, because no matter what, I know, there could be some misconceptions about things that happen. I saw Stephen A. Smith went and did this whole thing where he complimented you, but then at the same time, he was like, your ratings went down, 47%, and no matter what, and after the election, and da-da-da-da-da. So what did you think when you saw that?
First of all, I just did the math. Stephen A. Smith is very successful at ESPN, but the last I checked, it's about 500,000 people watch that show. I had double that on a bad day at MSNBC. So if you're going to talk numbers, let's talk all the numbers, including your own, Stephen. And the second thing I would say is, yes, we went down by about 46% on the readout on my show. The network overall went down about 51%.
Okay.
So we had just had a ratings meeting saying, after the 2024 election, we were riding high. I mean, there were nights we had 1.7 million people watching just one night of our program because people were high on Kamala. So in the months leading into the election, everyone was watching MSNBC. We were going live to her events. When Megan Thee Stallion was performing, we were live. Nicole Wallace was getting nearly 2 million people watching. That's Rachel Maddow numbers, right? And Rachel Maddow was in the 2 billions. These numbers were huge that we were getting leading into the election, because I think the Democratic base was on a high, and MSNBC is their channel. As soon as Kamala Harris was declared not the winner of that election, the bottom dropped out of all cable news ratings other than Fox. Fox ratings soared. CNN, which had already been in the toilet, their ratings were horrible. They didn't have a single show with 1 million viewers on it. And this had been for over a year. Ever since they did that town hall with Trump, it really angered their audience, and they really had not come back. And so they didn't have many bright spots on their show. Even Anderson Cooper didn't have 1 million people watching. And MSNBC was now routinely beating them. We were beating them every night. We were beating them even in the demo most nights. The thing about, we have to understand about cable news ratings is there's the big number, there's the total number, we call it the P2, and that's how many people total are watching. So it would be like, for me, on a good night, post-election, 1 million, 1.1 million. At Fox, their P2 is like 2 million.
Right.
It's like 3 million. Like 3 million people would be watching. Now, in a country of 350 million people, that's not that many people, but it's a lot for news.
Yeah, it is.
Rachel Maddow on a good night, would get 2 million people watching. But in the demo, of their 600,000 people watching a show on CNN, a third of that joint would be in the demo. So their strength was in the money demo, people who were 29 to 54. In that demo, CNN was still competitive, but not in the big number. After the election was over, we were still either matching or defeating our person that we were up against in the CNN ratings in the demo, and we were crushing them in the total number.
Right.
For an entire
perspective
year.
matters. That's why I wanted to ask you about that, because I remember that a lot of people did come to your defense, and it was a shocking move, I think, for all of us, and I mean most certainly for you more than anybody, because I was like, that is, as far as what I watch on television, you're one of the people that I'm going to tune in for, and I know a lot of people were. I told you right before we started, I saw when Plies had been posting you, and he was like, tell Joy-Ann Reid, I said, keep fighting that good fight, and he's always in support of you, and he's posted you numerous times.
It's a badge of honor. I'm a super fan of Plies, and when he the first time he reposted me, I was like, okay, but between that and anytime that somebody that I'm a big fan of, is like reposting me, I'm like, you know what, I can retire. I love Plies. I think he's great.
All right, now let's talk about what's going on now. This is why I'm so glad you're here, because this is what I'll be watching you to find out about. So we're watching everything that's happening right now, right, with Donald Trump, and New York City is on high alert. A lot of places are on high alert right now because we don't know what's about to happen. And so can you just kind of break down for me as far as Donald Trump bombing 3 different places in Iran where there were, I guess, nuclear bases, and then now they're firing back at some of the U.S. bases in the Middle East. Can you just tell us what's going on in layman's terms?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we launched an unprovoked attack on a country that had not attacked us, to be very much like we did in Iraq.
And Donald Trump had said there'd be no wars. And
correct. He ran for office saying he would not start stupid wars. He criticized George W. Bush for the Iraq War. He and I agreed on that, although he was for it before he was against it. But he eventually was against the Iraq War. He said that if he became president again, not only would he end the stupid foreign wars we were in, but he would not start another one. A lot of people voted for Trump because they thought he was the peace candidate. There were a lot of Muslims who voted for him over Kamala Harris because they said he would bring peace to the Middle East specifically. So Donald Trump comes into office claiming to be the peace candidate, pushing actually to get a Nobel Peace Prize because he said he would end the Ukraine war. He didn't do that. Then he said that he would turn the Middle East into a resort. It would be so peaceful and wonderful. Everyone would want to build hotels on the Gaza Strip because he would end that war. He didn't do that. Literally 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump said that he wanted to give diplomacy a chance with Iran because all of the Western world believes Iran does not have a right to have nuclear weapons. There used to be a deal that was going to stop them from getting nuclear weapons. Barack Obama signed it. Bibi Netanyahu, who was the prime minister of Israel for 15 years running, he didn't want that deal done. Obama did it anyway. Trump came into office, undid it. Joe Biden came into office, did not put it back in. So now Iran was free to, enrich uranium.
Right.
And you have to enrich uranium to a certain point where you can actually take it from being just something that can power your energy grid to something that can make a weapon. And the goal of the Western world is to stop Iran from getting to that weapons grade. They don't mind if they have it just to power their lights. But Iran has never said they wanted it to be weapons grade. They need to power their country. They're an oil-rich country that should be independent in terms of generating electricity. So they want nuclear energy. And they've never said they wanted nukes. And there's no proof that they've been trying to get nukes. But Bibi Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, is determined to make sure that not only do they not get nukes, but that they neuter them as a power. They don't want Iran to be a powerful country in that region because they want to be the big dog in the region. So they've been trying to get president after U.S. president to get into a war to destroy Iran. No president was sucker enough to do it until Trump.
I saw Netanyahu praising Donald Trump for this. And so now what does this mean for us? Because as we're thinking about this as like chess, obviously everything that you do has multiple reactions. And I see Russia saying that no matter what, they're supportive, not of us at all. So what does this mean now for the United States? I saw Donald Trump, posting about making sure that we don't that the price of oil doesn't go up and to keep the price, like he can really can have any control over that. But what now does that mean for us? Like what type of danger? Because this is the main thing I'm trying to figure out as I'm seeing all these things. I was in Detroit. I traveled back home. We're in New York. We're near Times Square. And I really think about these things. Like, is this something that I need to make sure that I'm prepared? Like, should I not be here? I just, I don't want to be in a state of panic, but I was when I saw all of this transpiring.
I mean, the irony is New York voted very decisively against Donald Trump. But New York City is the most iconic city in America. And when people want to commit terrorist acts, they tend to go to the iconic cities. And all the iconic cities are blue cities: San Francisco, New Orleans, New York City, Washington, D.C. And so unfortunately, the very people who voted not to have Donald Trump be president are the most vulnerable if Iran decides to use one of its proxy forces. So they, though despite them having their own army and air force and navy, et cetera, they financially control and prop up a group of terrorist organizations, Hezbollah, the militant wing of Hamas. They get money from them, and they use them in different countries in order to influence politics locally. But they also have the ability to use those forces against us because we have military forces stationed all over the Middle East. And if they decided they wanted to bomb one in Qatar, for instance, or bomb one in, Israel or somewhere else, our troops are vulnerable. Which is
what they have been doing right now.
Yeah.
See, this is...
And by the way, it's not even just bombing our forces in the Middle East. If they really... when Osama bin Laden decided to wage war against the United States, he did it by attacking the most iconic buildings he could find: the World Trade Center, the Pentagon. And I worry I would be worried if I were in New York that if they decide to send a message not just by attacking our troops and have one of their proxies attack an iconic city, there is no city more iconic than New York City.
That's exactly why I'm right here, And then as far as congressional approval, because I see that debate going back and forth, like, was he supposed to get a congressional approval? But then I see people saying, and it's hard because you get all these different messages, and I don't know what's true and what's not.
Yeah.
And so then I see them talking about Barack Obama, and he didn't get congressional approval when it was time to bomb. What is going on? Was he supposed to get congressional approval, or is this something that the president has the authority? Well, clearly, it doesn't really matter if he has the authority to do something or not if he's not going to abide by the rules.
And that's the thing, is that the Congress of the United States has become so weak, not just recently, but over the course of decades. We have not declared war on another country since World War II, when we declared war on Japan, not on Germany, but on Japan because they bombed Pearl Harbor. And so then we declared war on Japan. Since then, the U.S. has engaged in multiple wars: Korea, Vietnam, Iraq twice, when we kicked them out of Kuwait and then went in and invaded and occupied them. And now this war. None of them was declared. When Barack Obama bombed Libya to kill Muammar Gaddafi, their leader, there was no war declared against Libya, but for sure bombing Libya was an act of war. When Donald Trump bombed and killed a man named Soleimani in Iran by dropping a bomb on him inside of a foreign nation, that was an act of war, but we didn't treat it like a war. We've made it so routine for American presidents to attack foreign nations in acts of war, but not call it a war, call it a special military operation or whatever we call it. We've emboldened presidents. It's not just Trump. There's something wrong with our system when you can do an act of war against a country and not call it a war. They do it all the time. He isn't the first.
And besides just that, it does feel like Trump has been emboldened and given power to do a lot of things that previously it's like, okay, there's a system in place of checks and balances that someone can't just do whatever it is that they want to do. And rolling back a lot of things that in particular shows me that he wants to make sure that Black and brown people continue to be oppressed, women continue to be oppressed, but somehow people don't see it that way, and it is confusing to me because I feel like these are like specific things, and I know you have not been a fan of Donald Trump since the Central Park Five,
right?
Which you've been very clear on, and I agree with that. That's something that he still to this day will not admit that he was.
They're
wrong
suing
on.
him for defamation because he won't stop.
And the fact that people think they have no rationality, like you ruin these people's lives for a period, and now, yes, fortunately, people, but it's still something that the trauma from that is never going to be erased from their childhood. And there's people who still think that they did something wrong when it's already been
these were 14 and 15-year-old boys, and they spent up to 13 years in prison for something they did not do.
Right.
They were called rapists, gang rapists. People wanted to kill them, and Donald Trump wanted to kill them. He put an ad.
I remember that ad.
I remember
Use
it.
his own money. He had nothing to do with nothing.
Nothing to do with it. And so the reality is, since I have no use for him, didn't watch The Apprentice, no interest, because I think he's a criminal. I think he's a fiend, and I think he's a racist. And so I don't care that people liked him on The Apprentice. I don't care. That also doesn't make him qualified to be president of the United States.
Right.
And he's shown malignant hatred of Black people his whole life. People are like, no, he didn't. He used to get awards from the NAACP. Yeah, because it was good for his business to pretend to like Black people. Sure, he likes boxers, but he thinks that our worth is confined to athletics. Donald Trump, of course, loved being around boxers because to him, we're thoroughbreds. We're supposed to run, jump, play ball, and box. Other than that, we're not to do anything. I did a book on Trump. I interviewed a lot of people who know him. He didn't want Black people, quote unquote, counting his money. He only wanted Jewish people counting his money, which is also defaming Jewish people. He did not want Black people in the front office of his building so that they would be visible when people walked in. He believed all the visible people at his businesses needed to be white. He hired undocumented immigrants, most of whom were brown. He hired lots of people who were brown. The guy who took the fall for the document theft at Mar-a-Lago is from Guam.
Right, I remember that.
So he loves having brown people around, but he thinks they're flunkies.
Yeah.
He thinks they're fall guys, and he doesn't want them to be seen by the public. He wants white people to be visible. Look at his administration.
Yeah.
It's almost all white.
Unqualified people that are loyal to him.
And white.
And
his purpose is that he thinks that the United States was better in a time in the 1950s when anyone powerful was a white man. So he's created, and look at when he walked out and gave his announcement about this war. It was Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, him, and Marco Rubio, who I think in his mind might be a white guy as well, even though he's Cuban.
Okay, he's
I mean, but it's like the purpose is that's the visual he wants, right? He's like, it's not even just me. This is my army of conservative white men, and this is the way America should look. This is the way it should feel, and we should exert power over brown people with this look. And he's clear about that.
What did you think? Did you think that him and Elon Musk would fall out for a period of time the way that they did? Because I had thought that as soon as he announced, and they were so chummy, I was like, this is probably not going to end well.
Yeah, I didn't either, because these are two egotistical, needy 7th grade girls who were never going to be able to live in the same locker room for long because they both want to be president. They both want to be the boss. They both want the attention, and they're both attention hogs. And so I thought, and eventually they were going to get on each other's nerves, but they also need each other. And to me, I always said, look.
He wants those contracts.
Listen.
He wants to make sure financially everything is good. He wants the power that Donald Trump can afford. And Donald Trump loves people with money around him.
And so at the end of the day, I don't care if they don't personally get along. They still want the same things.
Right.
They both want to get rid of DEI. They both don't believe Black people should be pilots. They both don't believe Black people should be military leaders. They both don't believe women should have freedom over their own bodies. They think they should be baby machines. They think they should shut the hell up and make them a sandwich. They agree on all the things that are important to me. So if they're fighting individually, I don't care. They don't get along for now. They get along tomorrow. They're still both getting rich off of us.
What do you think about elections going on right now? Like, I know in New York we have a big one for the primaries.
Big one.
Yeah, for who's going to represent us in the for the Democrats for mayor. Actually, tomorrow I got to vote tomorrow because that's the last day that I can vote. But it feels like a lot of what people are talking about is Trump, which kind of sucks because I feel like we're not talking about things that we need to do to be able to move forward. I feel like a lot of this is based around conversations. What are we doing about this president? And then there are really important conversations like about ICE and immigration and really scary things that are happening in this country.
Yeah. And I think that the challenge with just keeping it local is, the New York metro area in terms of its GDP, has a larger GDP than Canada. So if you do the metro area that goes from Jersey City to New York City to Connecticut, to Stamford, Connecticut, that metro area, it's the GDP of Canada. So if you're the mayor of New York City, you're essentially the mayor of a nation state. You're like the president of a nation state. New York City could be its own country in terms of its economic power. And so you have to essentially have a global view and a national view to be the New York City mayor. And you saw what it looks like when that fails. Eric Adams got led around like a donkey by Donald Trump because his corruption set him up to be played by the president. And he gave in on some really important things that make New York, New York. My parents are immigrants. They came here as immigrants. They came to New York. The idea that you can be rounded up at Home Depot in New York, that you could go to your immigration hearing and have ICE waiting for you, that you could be dragged off the streets of New York for writing an op-ed, that New York would become like the center of a fascist takeover.
Children are scared to go to school.
Correct.
There's schools that are like, a lot of the kids aren't coming in because they don't know what's going to happen.
And they don't know if their parents will be there when they get home. Can you imagine being a kid right now in the Bronx and wondering if when you get home, your mom, your dad, or your abuela will be there because they might get dragged off and you'll never see them again? That should not be happening in New York, sanctuary city, in a sanctuary state. It shouldn't be happening, but it's happening here because Trump wants to punish here because this is the city that rejected him. It's the city that he wanted to be the king of and they wouldn't let him. It's the city that keeps rejecting him in terms of elections. It's where he was born and raised, and he thinks that he should be popular and loved here, and he's not. And he's deciding to punish these blue cities because they hate him. So I think to be the mayor of New York City, you are almost the president of a country that has to fight Trump. But at the same time, we had Zohran Mamdani on the show, on the Joy Reid show, and he talked a lot about the stuff he wants to do that is local because he knows that he has to balance fighting Trump on immigration, letting people have the freedom to write an op-ed or go to Home Depot and not get snatched, but at the same time, make it so people can afford to pay rent here. Make it so people can afford to live here because people are leaving because they can't afford to be in this great city. So he had a balance. And I think Brad Lander, who we also interviewed, same thing. He's like, on the one hand, I can't let this become like Nazi Germany. But on the other hand, we got to make sure people can eat and afford to ride the subway and afford to be safe on the subway. We got to do the basics.
What do you think about Cuomo also running?
Good God, help us, Jesus. I was saying to somebody the other day, New York is like, it's like a girlfriend that you have that meets the most amazing men all the time and goes right back and dates the asshole every damn time. New York is like that girl who they're like, oh my God, this guy was so good to me, took me out, we had a great time. Or are you going to go out with him again? Nah, I'm going to go out with Andrew Cuomo.
No, right. I mean, it's fine, but I see that they're saying that Mamdani is actually doing better than Cuomo so far.
So I hope so,
from
because
what they're saying.
The history of New York is like, other than David Dinkins, damn, New York elects the worst people. What is happening?
You know what I want to ask you? What have you learned from, like, because I know, when you look back in things in retrospect, it's different when you're in it. But now that you look back on your time at MSNBC, what are some things you would say you learned about yourself and decisions?
I definitely learned. And by the way, I can talk about New York like that because I'm from Brooklyn. So don't come at me, y'all. I'm from Brooklyn. We can say, we on. Okay, he's Flatbush. The biggest thing I learned, and I've thought about this a lot since I left there, I learned that I was all the way in the bubble. And that I had encased myself in the bubble, and I was not seeing outside the bubble. I pride myself on being a pretty savvy political analyst, and I'm pretty clear-eyed most of the time. But I was not clear-eyed going into 2024 because I was allowing the things I was seeing on my MSNBC screen convince me that was the world I was living in.
Okay.
And I wasn't seeing the anger people had, the real deep anger at the Democratic Party on an existential level that would make them reject Kamala Harris. I thought, they're angry at Biden. I didn't understand the deep anger was for the party itself and its failures, especially on Gaza. I didn't see that people were literally looking at Trump not as the fool that I was portraying him as and that I saw and that I could see in the uncut videos of him talking, that it seemed clear to me. But all they were seeing was him as a paycheck.
Right.
They were seeing him as a check.
And also like a savior, because
and a savior.
He was great at marketing himself.
Correct.
And it's the specific way.
And I thought to myself, 1 million people died because of this dude. He was responsible for 1 million dead Americans. No one's going to elect him again. In my mind, I'm like, they're never going to put him back again. They would be crazy to do that. But people looked past the deaths. They looked past their grandmas dying alone with an iPad. They looked past his foolishness, his dumb foreign policy, his, treacherousness on Ukraine, all the things that we thought were important. And all they saw was survival. And then for them, he was their key to survival, and the Democrats were their key, were the key to just the same old shit. And if you give people the choice between ugly survival and sort of like safe demise, they'll take ugly survival.
Right. At least they feel like they have a chance.
Right.
Somehow, some way. Do you consider yourself an activist? Because I see people saying she's not a journalist, she's an activist. Like, you can't be both.
Right. I consider myself an activist journalist in the frame of Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells was a whole journalist. She was uncovering lynchings that the New York Times wasn't uncovering, the facts behind lynchings that the Chicago Tribune was missing. She was picking up things that major national journalists could not figure out. And she was doing that as an activist and a journalist. And I think that particularly in a time of autocracy and fascism, if you're not an activist journalist, you're not doing it right.
Ooh, that's right. Could you, I mean, I know on MSNBC some things were opinionated, and it's not just straight reporting, because people want that, right? They also want to hear that. It does help you sometimes look at things from a different point of view.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also a distinction that you've had to make so that people can understand sometimes it isn't just straight reporting.
Well, it's so the difference between us and Fox is Fox are just, I don't even know if it's their opinions. They're just giving you Trump's opinion. They're doing whatever they think that Trump voters will want to hear, right? And they're doing that even when they had to pay $787 million in a lawsuit because they knew the election wasn't stolen. They're the ones who called it first, but they lied to their audience because they know their audience needs the dopamine. They need the drug of Trump is right, Trump is right, Trump is right. Even if they don't believe it. I mean, Tucker Carlson says, I love Trump, but he was texting, I hate Trump. I hate him existentially. I don't know which is true because he'll say whichever thing is the most important at the time, right? Keep that paycheck. Whereas at MSNBC, we had a standards department, and we weren't just yapping. We actually were we were giving analysis, and it was fact-based analysis. Based on facts. So we couldn't just get up and lie. We weren't allowed. And I'll give you a perfect example. The night that Biden had his very disastrous debate. Now, we knew what we saw.
Right.
And we could have come out there and been like, he did great, which is what his surrogates did, right? Kamala Harris came out and said he was fine. Gavin Newsom came out and said he was fine, but they were surrogates. Their job was to say he was fine.
Okay.
And it was brilliantly done. And some of our analysis was, sure, he didn't seem great, but the other side is a Nazi. That's also a valid point of view. He didn't seem like he was okay,
but
other side, bringing fascism.
What are we choosing between here?
And but we were honest with our audience to the point where we were getting beat up. Nicole Wallace and I were talking about, we were getting the crap kicked out of us on social media by our fans, by people who love MSNBC, because we were not carrying water for Biden. And we just weren't going to do that.
You know, it's different because I feel like when it comes to Republicans, they will do that.
They will do that.
Yeah.
100%. And they know what they see. Trump doesn't make no sense. Trump speaks, and all I hear, but until they edit it and chop that thing up, you do not. I promise you will not understand anything he says. I challenge people when Donald Trump does a press conference or anything, don't listen to it, read it. Go back and get the transcript. You will not understand what he's saying. His brain don't work good. And y'all know it don't work good. You know that he is sundowning. You know it. But they fix him and they make him sound coherent. When he gave his speech about bombing Iran, he said, and you know, a lot of people didn't know those bombs could do it. Those bombs really did it. They did the thing. And then the bombs did it. And then and he's saying, so I'm like, is this supposed to be serious?
Like, what are we talking about here?
What are you saying? And then he goes,
yeah, it's like a journalist's dream, but at the same time, it's a nightmare because it's real life.
He's an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Wolff was on our show. He said he's an idiot savant. And that's not a compliment.
No, it's not. And I love that you had Amber Ruffin on
Yes.
the first episode. I thought that felt very like, okay, this is a great way to kick things off.
It was, because she was serious about, surviving as a comedian in an autocratic system, and she's hilarious and funny, but we didn't want to come in just like heavy. You know what I mean? We were like, let's at least make you laugh a little bit, because you have to laugh at this or you're just going to cry all the time.
Well, I want to ask you, so what can we expect as we're watching this? Because this is now, you have the freedom to do whatever it is. And I know on Fridays, it's a good Freestyle Friday, so people can engage, ask questions, get those answers. But can you just tell me, like, what is your goal, or what would be your dream if, like, people, if you could break it down for, this is what my show is about?
What my show is about, I would say, is trying to make the ununderstandable mess that's happening in the world understandable.
Right.
And bite-sized so you can get it. So you can get it and move on with your life, right? I want to make the horrible things that are happening digestible so that we can understand what we're dealing with, because we have to face it. But also, I think you can't just steep yourself in the hell. Mm-hmm. You have to have some fun. You have to have some joy.
Right.
So we're trying to balance facts, analysis, and joy.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be some, like you said, it does have to be balanced, because sometimes some people choose not to engage at all, and you can't do that.
Right.
You can't not engage. You can't not be involved. You have to know what's going on. But at the same time, it can't be like, doomsday feeling all the time.
That's right. And I mean, and I if you've ever been to Cuba, so when President Obama briefly opened the door for you to be able to travel to Cuba, my husband and I were we were doing some research for a documentary about boxing. And you really can't do a documentary about boxing unless you go to Cuba, because Cuba had such a profound influence on American boxing in the 1950s and 60s. And so a lot of our research was about Cuba. So we're like, okay, we'll go. We signed the thing. We put our visa as research, and we went. Cuba is fascinating because the way that people there respond to dictatorship, because they are under a dictatorship, is they don't seem continuously depressed. They have these moments of joy. Right. They have no money. Cuban food is delicious in Miami. Not so good in Cuba because they don't have no seasons. They don't have anything. Okay. So you really can't even enjoy it as a tourism experience. But they find ways to be joyful. Like some of the nights in the place where we were staying in Old Havana, they would just throw a party in the middle of the square, and everyone's out there dancing, playing music. They found ways to have joy, because human beings cannot live in misery forever. Even if you read Anne Frank's diaries, there's the ways in which she was like being silly and finding ways to amuse herself. It's like we as a people, we will break down and be destroyed as humans if we're just constantly miserable. And the Trump regime is both terrifying, but also ridiculous. Right. Like it's as stupid.
It's kind of embarrassing in other countries. Like when you travel and people are like, because we see how tourism is down. People are not trying to come here. No. Yeah, and so it's going to affect us so much.
Totally. I mean, and the thing is, what he's going to do, and I think this is the reason that this dictatorship won't last and won't succeed. Tourism is crashing. Mm-hmm. People are not showing up to their farm jobs, so it's going to hurt the farm industry. It's going to make food expensive. Construction companies are not seeing their workers show up.
That's right, and housing's already not affordable.
Not affordable, and so it's going to get even worse because this country relies on the labor of undocumented people, and we're about to find out what it looks like when they don't show up to work. It's going to hurt all of us. It's going to hurt everybody, including a lot of people who voted for him.
Well, you know what they say, FAFO.
Listen, the find out phase is always the hardest, but it must come because you must find out. You asked for it, this is what you got.
What do you think when you see people like crying on social media that voted for Trump, but now family members are getting deported and things like that are happening? Because I see a lot of people being like, what y'all want from the store? And the comments and things like that. But I also feel like it tends to be very divisive.
Yes.
At a time when it does affect not just, people of Latin descent, but it does affect us too.
It affects everyone. And when I see that, I get it on the one hand. But I think what you have to realize is that they are just first. Mm-hmm. And whenever this country has persecuted anyone, they always come back to the blacks. They always come back to the Jews. They always come back to the Muslims. You can laugh at it if you want to, but he said he's coming for the homegrowns, and the homegrowns means black people. And so it's I feel sorry for the people getting deported regardless of how their family members voted, because I know they themselves cannot vote and did not vote for this. They are just here trying to live the same dream my parents came here to live, the same American dream my mother got to live, to see her daughter, grow up and go to Harvard and be on TV. Like, she could have never even imagined that. She unfortunately didn't live to see it, but she could have never imagined it in one generation. Or Barack Obama's father, the idea that his baby boy would become president of the United States. It's something really that can only happen in the United States. And so there is a kernel of something good here, and Trump is trying to destroy it. He's burning down this village because this village would not give him its warmth. And so I think that laughing at people who are the subjects of a fascist dictator, it's only cute until you're the one being dragged off into the van. And you will be. He'll come for everyone. He came for Elon, his paymaster. He'll come for all of his MAGA people, all those people who think that he's for them and that he loves them and he cares about them. He doesn't care about any of them. He'll burn it all down, including the people who love him.
Doesn't it feel good to say exactly what you want?
Yes, ma'am. It sure does.
What's the next book going to be about?
So I am working on a book that is actually about America turning 250 and what a fascinating 250 years that has been.
Cannot wait to see it. Maybe Trump can have a parade for his birthday celebrating that as well.
By the way, I have a working theory that part of the reason that he's so pissy and bombing Iran is that parade was a joke and he is mad about it.
I saw you kept being like, now post a little squeaky tank going down the block again one more time.
I'm like, it's the only memory I will have of that parade, the little squeaks. Poor thing.
All right. Well, listen, Joy and Reid, thank you so much and take care and congratulations. Just so you know, I'm on your Substack. I'm subscribed so I can pay attention to everything that you have going on and support you, because a lot of people were upset when that happened. But I am excited for you to see your own platform and how this is all going to turn out. But it's important that everybody goes out and supports too.
Thank you very much. And I'm a big supporter of yours. I was just telling my team, I was like, listen, I'm going in there and I'm getting ready because this sister, she going to interview you. Okay. She's going to be prepared. And I'm like, let me get ready because you are always prepared. A brilliant interviewer. And I'm a big fan.
Thank you. That was so nice. All right. I appreciate it. You got to come back.
Thank you. I will.
I need you.
Let's do it.
We need you. It's way up.